What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for some off-season conversation, right? Season just ended. If you're coming back by the channel, I appreciate you. Hopefully, a lot of people that are coming back to watch the channel are people that are coming back that were paying attention during the season, man. If you were hanging with me during the season, this is the first year that I've actually done this, just talking about the Colts. I had another YouTube channel before this upcoming season. But this season, it was just Colts every single day, or at least most days. There were a couple things that came up throughout the season, missed a little bit of time from here and there. But for the most part, we were here almost every single day. And if you were here pretty much every single day, like there are a lot of people that I know come by the channel every single day to watch these videos. And man, I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate you stopping by, right? This was an exciting season, a lot more exciting of a season than we expected, which is kind of what I want this video to be about, is kind of putting in perspective what this season was, right? You date this all the way back, go all the way back before the season ever started, when we were in training camp, and even before training camp really started, where you had all the noise with Jonathan Taylor and everybody talking about Jonathan Taylor's never going to play for the Colts again, and how ugly that situation got between Jonathan Taylor and Jonathan Taylor's agent, Malky Kawa, right? It seemed like everything that came out in the national media was all about Jonathan Taylor never playing another snap for the Colts. Now, of course, on this channel, the biggest video on this channel was a video that we did talking about the real information in that situation. It was information that was coming from Destin Adams, who by the end of it, like all the information that Destin Adams put out seemed to be the correct information the whole time. So Jonathan Taylor ends up playing for the Colts. Now, he obviously doesn't play for the first 4 games, right? Started the year on the PUP list. So going into the season, it was expected to be Zach Moss, but even Zach Moss in training camp broke his forearm. So we came into the season without Jonathan Taylor and without Zach Moss in that first game against the Jaguars. And that first game against the Jaguars was the world's first opportunity to see Anthony Richardson in the NFL, right? This was Anthony Richardson's first game. This was Shane Steichen's first game as head coach play caller, right? And we ended up losing that game 31-21, start the year 0-1. But Anthony Richardson in his first NFL game goes 24 for 37, 223, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He also had 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. He was the leading rusher by far. Deion Jackson, 13 carries, 14 yards, right? So we also end up losing Evan Hull in that game, 1 carry, 1 yard. He ends up getting hurt and is out for the rest of the season, which was unfortunate. But good news, we'll have Evan Hull next year. That's a name that I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about. Another good draft pick from the 2023 draft. And we'll talk more about the draft later this week. I have that video planned here for a couple days from now. But it was evident in the first game. Like, yes, Anthony Richardson didn't finish. He probably could have, but they were just being safe with him, right? Got that knee banged up a couple different times in the game, so they took him out, right? And that was obviously Anthony Richardson's story for 2023, is not being able to finish games. But in the first game, it was apparent Anthony Richardson will be a star. And it was apparent that Michael Pittman Jr. is still that guy when he had 8 for 97 and a touchdown. Okay, and this is a team that, again, talking about perspective here, we were only supposed to win. Everybody projected us to win 4 games. That was the popular pick for the Colts, was they're going to be a 4-win team once again. Now, if you watched the channel before the season last year, my projection for us was 7-10. And during that video, I mentioned that I thought we could be a 10-win team if Anthony Richardson's better than expected. We ended up not having him for a period of time and for most of the season, and we had to lean on Gardner Minshew. So leaning on a backup quarterback, and we've talked about this plenty. Gardner Minshew, best backup in the league, but you can't understate the fact that he is a backup quarterback. And I thought one of the things that I noticed about Gardner Minshew, the more the year went on, it was like you could tell in the first series or two what you were going to get from Gardner Minshew that day. You're either going to get great Gardner Minshew, where Minshew mania is popping and we're able to come out and win games, or you're going to get the Gardner Minshew that is just a tick off, just can't find the mark throughout the entire game, and the offense sputters and can't get it done, right? There were plenty of games where the Colts scored more than 20 points, but only did so because the defense was scoring touchdowns, i.e., the first game with the Jaguars, also the game against the Panthers, right? And there were different moments in different parts of the year. Like you start breaking it down into sections, right? You have that first game that was disappointing, but still you saw the glimpses of what the future could be. And then the very next week against the Texans in week 2, Anthony Richardson's going off and then gets the concussion, which was a freak accident. Like that one, I'm not going to put and say, oh, well, he's injury prone. Like he banged the back of his head off of the turf. We talked about that plenty early in the season. We're not going to sit here and have a full conversation about that. But Anthony Richardson, again, once again, showing he is going to be an absolute star in the NFL in this offense. And this was without Jonathan Taylor. He was impressing everybody without Jonathan Taylor even in the lineup, right? And one of the Colts probably highlights of the entire season ends up in a game where Anthony Richardson doesn't play at all. It was the third week against the Ravens. Took them to overtime, won 22-19 in a game that the weather was terrible. You had Gardner Minshew and Zach Moss going up against the Ravens, who ended up with the 1 seed in the AFC in 2023. So that was a massive win. That was a massive step forward. What we thought was a massive step forward for this team, right? Winning a game that we had no business of winning and doing it with a backup quarterback and a backup running back, right? And as the season went on, right, you get into different periods. The games against, the Rams and the Titans, almost come back to beat the Rams after being down, what was it, 23-0 or 23-3, something like that in the first half. Almost coming back. You take that to overtime, but still lose. But then finally being able to beat the Titans after losing 5 consecutive to the Titans over the last couple of years. So finally getting over that hump, and Titans end up 4th in the AFC South. The only team in the AFC South this year with a losing record. But either way, they got over that hump. They faced that challenge and got over that hump. But the hump they couldn't get over started a part of the season that would come up to be the detriment to the Colts, right? They go to Jacksonville and lose 37-20. They look like the Colts look when they go to Jacksonville. Got absolutely dominated in that game. Okay, and then the very next week, we've talked about it plenty, against the Browns. End up losing that game 39-38. Should have won that game. NFL came out and admitted that they made mistakes where the Colts should have won that game. The Colts could have been in the playoffs with that game. But even still, you look at it, 39 points for the Browns, right? You give up 37 against the Jaguars, 39 against the Browns, and then the very next week, they give up 38 to the Saints. That 3-game stretch really kind of solidified where the Colts were going to be in the season. After that point, the Colts go on a winning streak. The schedule got real easy towards the end, and they go on the winning streak starting with the Panthers. But that 3-game stretch was really that, when you look back at it, the make or break part of the season. If they could pull some of these games out, they could end up in the playoffs. But that was during that 3-game stretch. It was just apparent this team's not ready, even through everything, right? Through all the adversity. You think about everything that they had gone through up to that point with the whole Jonathan Taylor saga, Anthony Richardson getting hurt in this game and that game, and then he gets hurt and he's out for the rest of the season. And even still, going into Jacksonville, we were 3-2, right? And then by the end of those other 3 games, we end up in a position where we're 3-5 and we're making up ground, and we put ourselves in a hole, and we're dealing with all these injuries, right? One injury that we didn't talk a whole lot about because it happened so early was Ashton Dulin. Like, Ashton Dulin not being with us this season ended up having a massive effect on multiple different fronts. There were different games where the special teams was leaky, and Ashton Dulin could have helped that. Ashton Dulin could have been another threat, somebody else on the field that could threaten the defense, especially in this Shane Steichen offense. So there was a lot to battle through this season, so much to battle through. After that 3-game losing streak, again, they beat the Panthers, they beat the Patriots in Germany, they're able to beat the Buccaneers, beat the Titans again. We were able to sweep the Titans. And then you get toward the end of the season, which was really where this season got defined, where you end up going to Cincinnati and losing 34-14, getting absolutely dominated, just didn't show up. And then you were able to beat the Steelers, and it looked like, okay, this Bengals game was just a wake-up call. This team's going to run the table down the stretch, because after the Steelers, it was the Falcons, the Raiders, and the Texans. It felt like we had a chance to close the season out strong and go to the playoffs, and maybe we could make a little noise in the playoffs. I think we stayed steadfast the whole time about this isn't a team that's going to win in the playoffs. right? This isn't a team that's going to win a Super Bowl. For sure that we weren't going to make a Super Bowl run, but maybe we could upset somebody in the playoffs and be that team. But then you lose to the Falcons, same as the Bengals, just not showing up when it mattered. And then it all culminates in the last game of the season, right? You're able to beat the Raiders in week 17, but then in week 18, not showing up in the first half, self-imposed mistakes. Like we talked about this in the post game yesterday. So I won't go into it a whole bunch, but just the way the season ended, especially with the Jaguars losing to the Titans. Like it just felt all week there was an ominous feeling like the Jaguars are going to lose that game. Like the Colts Texans game was being built up so much as whichever team wins this game could win the division if the Jaguars lose. And it just, for some reason, felt like the Jaguars were always going to lose that game. So it always felt like whoever won between Texans and Colts would win the division. And in the end, that's what happened. We could have been division champions through everything. Could have been division champions, which is absolutely insane. Again, from where we were supposed to be, a 4-win team, everybody projected 3, 4, 5 wins. I projected a 7 wins. And when you really look at it, the Rams game, missed opportunity. If we make a couple plays in the first half of that game, we probably win that game, right? Then you have 10 wins right there. If you don't fumble the bag against the Browns, there's another win. 11 wins as a football team. And then you think about the 3 games at the end of the year. And if you're able to just get one of the 3, right, the Bengals, the Falcons, and the Texans, you just get one of those games. This is a 12-win team. Could have been a 12, 13, 14-win team, which is crazy. But this is also what we talk about, like the NFL, the margin for error is just so small. And the difference between winning and losing, you hear players say it and coaches say it all the time, it's hard to win in the NFL. And the difference between going to the playoffs and being able to achieve greatness or going home and not realizing your potential is so small. This is a team that ends up winning 9 games. And it hurts. The end of the season hurts. It feels disappointing for where we thought we'd be. We thought at least we were going to go to the playoffs. I think for the better half of the last part of the season, we all thought we were at least going to sneak into the playoffs. And that just, it ended up not happening. But by all expectations, we shattered expectations in Shane Steichen's first year. Will he get coach of the year? Probably not. Kevin Stefanski deserves it with everything the Browns have gone through, being the most injured team in the NFL, all the key injuries that the Browns have had. Like Kevin Stefanski deserves it, but Shane Steichen was in the running for that, and I think the future is bright with Shane Steichen. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of conversation about the quarterback and Anthony Richardson, and there's going to be people that comment when they hear me talking about Anthony Richardson, they're going to say he's made of glass, and I get it. Like, he's got to prove it, right? You think back to high school, you think back to college, think in his first year in the NFL, he's got to be able to prove it. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. He's got to be able to stay healthy. Like, I understand that part of it, but I'm not going to sit here and say that he's always going to be hurt. Like, things happen, and now he's in the NFL where he's able to get treatment from the best doctors, and I think the doctors will help his body heal, right? Do the things that they need to clean up the shoulder that needed to be cleaned up, right? Same injury that he had in high school needed to be cleaned up. It got cleaned up. I think we'll be good in the future. Just need freak injuries to not happen, but there's always going to run that risk, right? He's just got to learn to protect himself. So the future is very bright. There's just a lot of things. This is a team that obviously needs to retool, right? We don't make the playoffs. We don't win the division. We're sitting here looking up at the Texans right now, sitting here looking up at the Jaguars because the Jaguars beat us twice this year, even though we end up with the same record. But the building blocks are in place. And then there's, again, a lot that needs to happen. Guys that need to be re-signed. Got another draft coming up. Again, we're going to look back at the draft that just happened and look at those building blocks because I think it was really impressive. So at the end of the day, with all the disappointment, you know, as I continue to look forward to 2024 and what it's going to be going forward, like there's a lot of excitement, and I hope you sharing some of that excitement. I hope you'll keep coming back. We're going to be talking about more of the 2023 season along with trying to fit in, you know, some off-season conversation. But I understand that right now there are a lot of people that just kind of want to stay away from the Colts talk, and I completely understand that. And I also think, you know, with the playoffs coming up, that's going to pull a little bit of focus. So I want to save, you know, some of the hard-hitting off-season conversation for a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, what I want from the community is ideas, right? Things that you would be interested in talking about, things that you would be interested in hearing about, things that you may be wondering about that you don't have the time to look into. Maybe I can go ahead, look into things, I can put notes together, and I can make content for it, can make a video for you. So if there's anything at all that you guys can think of that you want to talk about, go ahead, put them down in the comments section. And again, dude, I appreciate any and all of you that come by the channel. This was an incredible first season of Colts content. The support from you guys has been absolutely amazing. Like, there have been ups and downs, right? We all go through ups and downs in life, just like this football team goes through the ups and downs in life, and being able to push through because I know I have a community behind me, right? Colts Nation, we all rock together, man, through the good, the bad. We might talk some trash here and there to each other, and that'll be what it is, right? It's the competitive nature of football to kind of be that way. But at the end of the day, there's always a lot of love shown, which is an impressive thing, right? This is like an internet thing. So I appreciate all the love that you guys show. I appreciate you showing up each and every day. And I'm going to continue to show up each and every day and try to bring the best content possible and keep everything fresh and engaging for you guys, because you guys deserve that with everything that you give me and all the fuel that you give me. So again, I appreciate you stopping by every single day this season. I appreciate you stopping by for this video. If you're not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Share this with anybody you know that would enjoy Colts content. You know, going into the offseason, I really want to start to build this community. This is where, you know, we find out who the real ones are, you know what I mean? Especially when we start getting into the dog days of the summer, right? When there's no football happening, you know, basketball, once basketball's over, there's going to be a lot of lean times in this off season. But I appreciate you all hanging with me and stopping by. And again, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you have notifications turned on so you get notified when videos come out every single day. And of course, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.